Hey guys, sorry this is late. I have honestly tried about 50 times to record this, um, but for whatever reason, I had to stop. Um, Literally got up at 3 o'clock this morning thinking everything would be quiet. No, um, I could hear people snoring. So, um, hopefully everything is all chilled out now. I sent everybody off hunting, and my little one's sleeping. The dogs are in their bed. My older one's sleeping, and she's not snoring. So hopefully, cross your fingers, this will work this time. So, anticipatory guidance. This is what we do to teach our parents what to expect. We teach them about the developmental levels. What's the next developmental level that their child's going to be going through, and how to help them through that. For example, for trust versus mistrust, you really want that child to develop the trust portion of it, and then stay away from the mistrust part of it. So, um, if we teach the parents that we want them to master the trust portion of it, then hopefully we'll help that child will master the part that we need them to. So we'll get into each different stage. Newborn and infant. Just an FYI, this is a time where they have a lot of growth. They have a lot of change. Their birth weight is going to double by the time they're 5 months old, and triple by the time they're a year old. Their height, generally they grow about a foot during that first year. And by the end of the year, they're able to feed themselves. They're able to, Cheerios and types of things. And they're able to understand meanings of words. Oops. Hold on, guys. I gotta take a quick break here. Brought back up. So, developmental milestones of the infant. Within that first year, they should be able to roll over, sit up, stand by themselves. They can say a word or two, and they're able to use that pincher grasp. Like I said, they can pick up the Cheerios and feed themselves. So this breaks it down further into 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months. By 3 months, that posterior fontanelle should be closed. Generally, it closes at about 2 months. They're going to smile when they recognize mom. Maybe coo and giggle at the same time. They can hold toys. They can't see a toy and say, "Oh, I need to grab that." But if the parents hand them the toy and help them grasp it, they can hold on to it. Because now they're starting to look at objects and stare at their own hand and try and figure out, they look at the colors, they look at the movement. So 6 months, they're able to hold their bottle or lift the cup by the handle depending on how early the parents decide to start a sippy cup. They're going to start imitating sounds they hear. Sitting with minimal support. They can roll from their back to their stomach. They like playing peekaboo. And they like to be picked up. They like to be held. So at 12 months, they lose that Babinski side. Remember, that is where you stroke the outside of their foot and their toes fan out. By 12 months, you should be able to determine if they're left-handed or right-handed. 12 months, they're going to start walking with help, maybe holding on to mom or dad's hand, and 1, 2 hands, just kind of depends on how far along the baby's, or how well the baby's doing with it. At 12 months, they know their own name, and they know how to shake their head for no. Sometimes they'll be able to say it, but more common for them to shake their head no. And this is the stage where they learn how to be a ham. They do things which, I think it's too early, attract attention. You've seen the little 12-month-old kiddos that are being goofy and smiling and flirting, and yeah, it's because they're learning how to do things to get attention. Erikson stages of development. Trust versus mistrust. I think we all have this one down. Basically, they develop trust when their needs are met, their bottle, their diaper. And they develop mistrust when routines are all over the place. There's no predictability. Um, so they'll develop that mistrust. PJs, I don't want you guys to get so caught up in PJs, but have an idea of it. There is some vocabulary words related to a PJ slide, but when I get to that, I'll tell you about it. But sensory motor. They learn everything basically from the sensory input. What do they hear? What do they see? What do they touch? What do they feel? Or what do they feel? What do they taste? So they use toys, bright colors, for stimulation because it'll catch their eye, and that's where they get their calmness. That's how they calm themselves down. And then so when we are assessing them or, listening to lungs, we always want to make sure we have an extra, like a bright colored toy that they can focus on so that they're not focusing on the stethoscope and grabbing a hold of it because, you can't hear lungs when somebody's playing with the tubing of the stethoscope. So try and use a bright colored toy in your other hand and keep their focus on that. Freud, basically it's the oral stage. Their pleasure comes through their mouth. Thumb, pacifier, foot, toys, whatever. Infants at play. They usually play solitarily. Um, they're learning more how to play with objects. They go from, like, a baby will stare at a rattle when you shake it, and when they hit the end of the infant stage, they will pick up the rattle and shake it for themselves. And as you know, once they become mobile, the area of play grows. Language development, this is kind of broken down again. 1 to 2 months, you've got crying and vowel sounds, maybe a little bit of coos, babbles, crying, comfort sounds. 3 to 6 months, you're able to hear vocalizations. They're going to start laughing. They're going to cry less than they did. You might hear some squeals and multi-syllable babbling. 6 to 9 months, their speech is getting a little bit better, and by 9 to 12 months, they should be able to talk a word or two, especially like the 2-syllable words, the mama or the dada. All right. So toddlers, generally they are more independent. They know the word no. They're very proud of the new things they can do, like when they go to the potty on their own. They like to show them off. The rate in which they grow and the amount of food that they take in really slows down. It feels kind of weird, for the first year. Parents are feeding this baby all the time, and now when they hit toddlers, they're busier, but because their growth slows down, they're not eating as much. So remember, a birth weight, what was it? Doubled by 5 years or 5 months. Now the birth weight is going to quadruple by 2 years. So you can see how it really slows down. My daughter is snoring in the background. I am so sorry. I'm going to throw something at her. No, she quit, but next time she snores, I'll throw something at her. Toddler milestones. These kiddos are walking up and down the stairs. They're starting to undress themselves. If anybody's had a toddler in this house, they know that they're always naked. They are starting to scribble on paper and are able to kick a ball. They have a vocabulary of about 1,000 words and are able to use short sentences. Hold on, I'm going to break here and go kick someone. Sorry, I had to go pick up my bottle of ranch dressing and my Advil bottle that I threw at her, so I had more ammunition in case she starts snoring again. anyways, the toddler milestones, like I said, they're going to be doing really good at walking up and down the stairs. They're going to be naked all the time, scribbling on paper, so you won't be able to understand what they're drawing, but they will. As you can see, they can kick a ball. Their vocabulary increases quite a bit, and you may not be able to understand everything they say, but you should be able to pick out most of it. And they use short sentences. So their psychosocial, their Erikson's, is autonomy versus shame and doubt. They learn to be independent. They understand that their behavior has an effect on each other. So if they are being naughty, it will conflict with their parents, with what they want them to do, and cause this little conflict. Well, they're trying their darndest to become independent, but if the parents are doing everything and not allowing them to be independent, they're going to be doubtful and they're going to feel shameful. So at about 15 months, they actually may start doing their own little routines, or routines that parents, caregivers help them with. So they may get a little bedtime routine chart that's over here, because they do better as long as if they know there's a routine, they can literally do that routine themselves as long as they've done it a few times with their caregiver. And this little guy I absolutely love. He is the most independent little toddler I've ever seen. Take him home in a heartbeat and snuggle him all night long. Anyways, PJ, again, don't spend all your time on this. This is a curious stage, and these toddlers really like to explore. You know that from when we first, or when we did the safety portion of this. They're active and they are interested in the environment. And if anybody's raised a toddler, you guys know that at this time it is all about me. It's me and it's mine, and I'm not going to share. So they really become egocentric at this point. Toddlers still play kind of independently, but the term I want you guys to know for toddlers is this parallel play. Their play is more social, but it doesn't mean that they're playing with someone. They are actually playing with the kid alongside with them. Like the pictures here, you can see that all four of these girls are playing and they're doing something. The two on the left are painting. The ones on the right, one is playing the xylophone and one's hammering. But they're not playing together. They just play at the same place. So their communication, I can't stare at this little girl in the corner. I always start watching her and she distracts me. It's just funny. Anyways, they're imitating more words and speech. Like I said, their vocabulary is about 1,000 or more words. They can use short sentences. But the biggest thing with toddlers is they imitate. I will tell you that I was going through this, I think it was a review, and one of the students brought her little girl, and I think her daughter was, 2 at the time. And I was like, yeah, they imitate words and speech, and so this is the stage you don't want to sit there and say shit in front of. And right as I said it, I realized her daughter was sitting up, at the table. Thank goodness her daughter was preoccupied with, I don't know if she was watching the tablet or what she was doing, but she was preoccupied and she didn't hear me. I felt so bad. So if anybody ever brings their children to class with me, just remind me not to talk about toddler communication. Developmental or milestones for preschoolers. Oh, we're out of toddlers. I'm sorry, it's early. I kind of feel a little unprepared right now, but I wanted to get this out. Preschool age kids, most of them are in daycare, or especially most of them are in school. So they're having a lot more social interactions with other kids. and well, germ factories. The milestones for preschoolers. They can use scissors correctly. Um, they are able to ride bicycles um, with training wheels. Some can go without training wheels, but generally they should be able to ride a bike with training wheels. They can throw a ball and hold a bat and swing at the ball. Um, and all their speech is pretty well developed. You can understand most of it. Alright. Erickson's stage of development. Initiative versus guilt. These kiddos have a can-do attitude. They want to do it on their own. They want to be even more independent than the toddler. So here they want to show that they've got motivation, that they can do it. Their behavior is more goal-directed and imaginative and competitive, but they really have a sense of what do they need to do. This very, very, very important part for them to develop their socialization. If they are not able to develop their socialization, like by exploring and learning different things, they are going to get or develop this guilt, and then they're not going to do any of it, and then they won't develop the initiative portion of this. They may actually feel inferior to their caregivers or even other kids because they can't do what other kids can do. Because they've never learned, they've never been able to explore and do it on their own. My cousin's daughter is like this. Only child, and I'm not saying only children are bad, I'm just, she's an only child, and she lost a baby not too long ago, so it's gotten worse. But we have her quite often, and she will, like, if it's time for bed, I just tell my daughter, hey, it's time for bed, go get dressed. And it's been that way for a really long time. So when I have a kiddo that expects to be undressed and dressed, I kind of forget. So every time I do it too, I'll tell Ari, okay, go get dressed, go get ready for bed, and within a couple minutes, I hear her crying and figure out what's going on. She's mad or she's upset because she can't undress herself. So she wants my daughter to help her. Then when it comes time, she doesn't know how to dress herself. And so some days she tries to keep up with Ari, but she really has a hard time because she hasn't been able to do these things by herself. Like, she's never opened a fruit snack package. I don't know what I grabbed a couple fruit snacks out of the cupboard and threw my Ari in her, and she started crying because she didn't know where to even start to open her fruit snacks, and just cried because she didn't know how to open them. We have gotten her that she will buckle her seatbelt now. She used to just scream and cry, and I used to sit there until she'd buckle her seatbelt because she's old enough that she can be buckling her seatbelt. She's in a booster seat, so just make sure we tell these parents that, let them try it, let them do it. If they fail, they'll try it again later. Piaget, these are the terms that I want you to know. According to Piaget, the preschooler is kind of in this what's called a pre-operational thought. So these words that I want you to remember: egocentrism. These kiddos have their own point of view, and they don't realize that their friends have their point of view or their teachers have their own point of view. To them, all they know is that they have a point of view. Transductive reasoning. Preschool age kids will connect to events because they happen at the same time. The example I have here, say a kid is naughty, talks back to his parents, gets put on a timeout, goes to bed that night, and wakes up the next morning with appendicitis. that kiddo might actually feel that because he had talked back to mom or dad and was naughty, that the appendicitis is because of um, him being naughty. Had nothing to do with each other, but they happen at the same time. So they may think that this is the problem. Centration. These kiddos are focusing on one aspect of the situation. There may be 17 different things going on, but they're going to be focused on one part. I'm trying to think of an example. um, if they're admitted to the hospital and um, they have to do different types of tests, they may just be stuck on the whole idea of the blood work because they get poked. Animism. These kiddos are giving inanimate objects um, qualities, so they bring them to life. We had, when my kids were younger, we had bought one of those stupid Kirby vacuums, and I don't remember why my daughter attached herself to it. But that was the time that Pocahontas, the Disney movie, was coming out. And for some strange reason, she named our vacuum cleaner John Smith. And our vacuum cleaner watched TV, and he came to the supper table. He did lots of strange things that actually gave him life. She would cover him up when she thought he was cold. Yeah, it was really kind of a funny thing, but makes a good teaching moment right now. So that's animism. Kind of animal is kind of in there, so that kind of helps you remember that term. Or animate. Kohlberg, you can kind of go over this and be familiar with it, but pre-morality or pre-conventional morality, this is the stage 2, generally 4 to 7 years old, the preschool, in the beginning of the school age. Their behavior is guided by an eye for an eye. So if you come over and hit me, then it's okay if I kick you back. So they really make their decisions based on, am I going to get in trouble or am I going to make somebody happy if I do this? Personality and temperament. There's different things on here. Just kind of goes over what the kiddos feel. They might need help in new situations just because they get shy, and I wouldn't worry about that slide a whole lot. So preschoolers playing, they are interacting with others. They do a lot of fantasy play, large motor activities, whether they're playing with dolls or playing doctor here. So, associative play. This is just the play that is considered when they're playing with others. Because leading up till now, infant obviously was solitary play, toddler is side-by-side play, the parallel play. And now, so in preschool, like I said, they're in school or daycare, so they're around more kids, and they're doing, or they're able to play with others, they're interacting with others. So like this picture here, the 3 kiddos are playing the same game, or doctor. So that basically it's just because they're interacting with each other. Dramatic play, or fantasy play, they're actually copying what they see in real life. So they may play house, they may play doctor, they may play grocery store, just different everyday things. And I will tell you, I've seen lots of kids playing, and everything that happens in their house comes out when they play house. Alright, their communication. They are up to just over 2,000 words. They can speak in complete sentences, longer sentences, they are always talking and asking questions, which is what we want them to do. It helps them develop. Um, but sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. I know my daughter, she would never talk in school, but by the time she got home, she was so um, bottled up from not talking. She blah, 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 all the way up until bedtime. And I joked and said, sometimes I would ask her, "Do you ever stop talking?" No, and then she'd go on to the next thing. Um, they really take what you say literally, um, and they really have they can have trouble focusing on a long, lengthy conversation. So um, I've seen parents try to discipline their kid by going on this long explanation. Well, a couple minutes into it, the kids are staring off into the side, and they're no longer thinking about what they did wrong. So they just might have problems focusing on conversation. That's pretty normal. Um, so, so that being said, as the nurses, when we've got these kiddos um, on, in the clinic or in the hospital, you guys will do your intermediate rotation, and you may have some kiddos in there. Or those of you guys at Gunderson, I know for sure, have had a pediatric rotation. So anyways, when we are teaching them about what to expect, or about a procedure that's coming up, or to give them kind of a rundown of what is going on with their bodies, actually having a visual aid will really help them. And we want to teach them in short periods. The average adult mind is like 20 minutes. That's their attention span. So that's why I feel bad doing this stuff online, is because I feel like I'm talking and talking and talking without doing stuff. But so if you can imagine, the preschooler's attention span is a lot shorter than that, especially when they can't focus on just a conversation. So make sure that we are bringing stuff in to help them put their hands on it. And it's, maybe we need to come in 3 different times to teach them about something that's going to happen. But if we come in 3 different times and do repeat it, then maybe they'll remember it and feel a little more comfortable. All right, on to school age. These school age kiddos are reading. They can ride a 2-wheeled bike, hopefully with a helmet. They are able to jump rope, and they can play organized sports. I'm not talking about like high school football. I'm just talking about maybe playing football at recess. So I know a lot of people get kind of confused on that, but they can play obviously school sports, but by the organized sports, I just mean where each kid has a role and they need to, this is what they need to do in their game. When they are sick or in the hospital, they may actually regress. So these kids are 6 to 12 years old. Some of them may go back to sucking their thumb when they're sick, or sometimes they may go back to wetting the bed, even though they haven't wet the bed since they were 3. If they're sick, they may want to snuggle with mom in bed. So they may go back to previous um, levels, and then it might take a little bit to get them out of it, but generally they can come right back out of it with some help from mom, dad, caregivers, whoever. So their growth. Don't want to read this from top to bottom, but just so you know, they are going to gain about 3 to 5 pounds a year and can actually grow 1.5 inches to 2.5 inches per year. So that is pretty significant growth period during this time. And if you've always wondered why the medication bottles say ask for 12 and under, ask a doctor 12 and under, or 12 and under is considered an adult. Their body systems, their organs and their immune systems are actually more mature and can actually be metabolized like an adult. So that's why that 12-year-old cutoff is. Girls are going to may get their growth spurt around 9 or 10, and boys are generally a year later. Just remember that we are teaching our kids, our parents, that growth spurts come at different times for everyone, but generally the girls will have theirs first, and then the boys will have theirs a little bit later, which kind of gets to a lot of upset boys that their friends are taller than them, or their girlfriends are taller than them, um, or bigger than them. If anybody has seen a picture of my son, this is a huge deal with us. My son is 13, and he'll be 14 in February, so he's 13 and a half, a little bit more. Um, but everybody in his age group is, growing taller and bigger, and my son is maybe 4'8", 4'10". But he's a whopping 65 pounds, or maybe between 65 and 68. Um, so he always gets really upset that the girls are bigger than he is, and just have to remember growth spurts come at different ages. And remember to teach parents that as these kids are going through the growth spurts, they are going to need to eat more. The nutritional needs increase, um, and kids, their appetites will increase. So it's not like a guessing game or anything, but their appetites will increase. They'll have growing pains. Um, so parents will understand when they're going through a growth spurt. Erickson's industry versus inferiority. These kids need to do useful work. You need to put them so that they're doing they're feeling involved. They gain a higher sense of self-esteem, self-worth when they can help. Um, so if these kids are diabetics, um, have them do their injections or have them check their fingers. Just because if they can do something that's useful, and rather than being taken care of like a small child, because that's how they will feel, is that they are they're not 11 years old, they feel like a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old where they have to be taken care of. And I will tell you, the sick child that is in this age group, they feel bad enough anyway because they are not out there with their friends, they're not doing the same thing. So if we take away any bit of their ability to do their own thing, they really have an issue with it. And they really can become depressed. So I don't remember if I used the appropriate words in here, but I wanted to explain it. Their stage is industry versus inferiority. So if we're not allowing them to do the things that they can do, they're going to feel inferior to their friends, their caregivers, whoever, just because they're not able to help out, they're not able to make their level. So really, really, really encourage parents to let these kids help out. PJ, this is about 7 to 12 years. So in that school age period, they're just learning concrete experiences, concrete materials. They're very focused on what's in front of them. They understand that every person has their own point of view, that their way they see the world is not the only thing out there. Kohlberg, yeah, I don't want you to get a whole stuck on this. Pre-conventional level, like I said, the right and wrong is determined by their discipline. If they don't get caught, then it's not wrong. But as you move into the 7 to the 12-year-old group, the conventional level, they're really working on avoiding the disapproval. It's not that they didn't get caught, so it's okay. It's that they know that they don't want to make anybody feel bad, so they're not going to do it. they're really learning how to obey the rules that they're learning. These kiddos may have trouble in the classroom. They like it quiet for their homework. And they really like alternative methods of learning, teaching, so that they get it in different ways. They really don't do well with the teacher standing up in front of class and just blah 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 blah. So each kiddo learns in a different way. At play, um, these kids are able to do a lot more, so they are able to play a lot more. They understand the rules of the game. Like I said, they can play the organized sports, um, not necessarily, um, high school football, but they can play football at recess. They actually play cooperative play, where they all play together, and they work with each other. The picture down here, they're riding one big bike, and they're taking, maybe they're taking turns so that everybody gets a chance to ride and everybody gets a chance to drive. This one down here in the right, these kids are playing in the kitchen. And maybe I can't tell if it's a play kitchen or what, but they really like to help. Maybe they're helping adults, but they're learning at the same time. So if I really kind of noticed this, and I apologize, my brain is kind of fried, so I'm trying to think of examples, and it's kind of my kids through this week. But my mom was making lefse the other day, and I showed up because, I was trying to get there to help her out. And I brought my kids in, and it was really kind of funny, but they have made lefse their entire life. I think they started by the time they were about 2. And I had gone in, and I went to the bathroom to wash my hands, and I come out, and all 3 of my girls were, they kind of took their places. Ari pulled up a chair next to the rolling part of it, and Bailey was helping her roll, and Maddie went straight to the iron and was helping cook. It was really kind of a cool thing to see, but they've learned from helping all the way up. Again, the cooperative play, they each have a role in the game. So if they're playing kickball, there's the pitcher, the first base, second base, third base, whatever. But they'll understand that there is a role, and that's what their part is in the game. Their vocabulary increases even more, and they're not really interpreting words like they did when they were preschoolers, as literal as they did. So when we're trying to communicate with school-age kiddos, whether we're in the clinic, whether we're in the hospital, always bring concrete examples. Nothing that could be black, or call it kind of in between, shaded gray. Everything that's just concrete, so that when we're describing, say for example, they're going to be having a CT scan. We could either take them to the CT machine, or we could bring a picture of the CT machine. Make sure you know what their knowledge is before you start teaching them. Sorry, but another example of my child. When Bailey was first sick, she was 11, and these nurses would come up to her and say, "Okay, I'm going to give your arm a little hug." And being my daughter and kind of being a smarty pants, she would say, "Well, I thought you were going to do orthostatic blood pressures on me. So I'll lay down for you, but I need to lay down for 2 minutes before you take my blood pressure. And then I'll stand up, but you need to wait at least a minute while I stand up. But I will tell you that I will probably fall over because it's really hard for me to stand, and that's why you guys are doing this." She would go through every step of orthostatic, and it was just kind of funny because the nurses would kind of look at me and be like, "Just tell her you're taking her orthos, and she will totally understand." And so that's kind of how she got through it is I did tell them, I said, don't come in here acting like she's, um, doesn't understand any of this, because she understands way more than she even lets me know. And once they would come in and act like that, she would totally shut down and she wouldn't listen to what they said anyway. They'd leave the room and she'd be like, oh, she thinks I'm stupid. No, most 11-year-olds don't know about orthostatic blood pressures or the side effects of your medications. School-age kiddos, we want them to, if they're following rules, if they are, after their procedures, we want them to get a reward. So you've seen kiddos go to the orthodontist if they're brushing their teeth well, if they are, do well with the visit. I know Gunderson has tokens. They're just little cards, and they can kind of add up as they go, and they can get different prizes. Or even at the dentist, they get little prizes. So if they're able to select rewards, if they're following rules and doing well during procedures. Teach them how to count when they are in a difficult situation. So if they are getting picked on, and instead of fighting back, count to 10 or walk away and count to 10. And then when we are talking with them in the clinic or in the hospital, always include them in the discussions. And when you get the history or what they're feeling, or what they come into ER, why are you here? Can you tell me why you're here? Don't just ask the parent, because I will tell you that most kids get very frustrated. I've seen it where they shut down and they won't talk to anybody if you go straight to the parent, but they can actually figure out more of what's wrong. This age group is able to tell you what they feel. There are some providers that will not ask the child. We had actually not too long ago, and so Bailey's she's out of this age group, but same principle. Taking her in for her POTS, all she needed was fluids, and I did ask for a chest x-ray because she was feeling more full than normal. So I just wanted the chest x-ray, then we could get the fluids. But the doctor that was supposed to be on got off shift just before we got there. And I got stuck with a doctor I really don't care for. It took us 4 hours, but finally got a chest x-ray and fluids and a pregnancy test. But when he came in, he looked straight at me. He actually had his back to Bailey and said, tell me why she's here. Well, she's right there. You can ask her. I asked you. Well, she's worried. She feels like she's full of fluid in her lungs, but she's also crashing. So we need to make sure there isn't any fluid in her lungs, so that we can give her fluids. And she's like, well, he would ask me questions like, well, has she been nauseated? Has she vomited? And he was so rude about asking her anything. She was ready to leave the ER. Her mast cell acted up because she got so stressed out from him that she broke out in hives from head to toe in a matter of seconds. It was really crazy, but it was all because the doctor came in and would not talk with her. So remember that. Remember to always include them, because they will give you some good information. Adolescent development. End of childhood, beginning of adulthood. So they really try and figure out who they are. They're going through a lot during this stage. It's from 13 on up to 19, 20. So they're going through puberty. They're going through these huge growth changes. If you've ever compared a 13-year-old, maybe my 68-pound 13-year-old, to my nephew is just about 18, and he is 6'4", and I don't know, 150 pounds. Maybe I'm way off. I don't know. But it's a huge difference. They go through a lot. They become less dependent on their parents, well, for transportation, for pretty much everything. A lot of the adolescent age group goes in, gets a job. so that they have their own money. And their peers are their most important part of their life. Yeah, family's important, but if you've had kids and lived through this stage, um, parents generally do not know anything, but their friends know everything. Milestones. Um, their fine motor skills are well developed. Their gross motor skills are well developed. Um, and as I preached throughout this whole thing, and here's another thing that shows um, growth spurts occur at different times, especially boys after girls. They can actually think, apply abstract thought and analysis. So this is kind of the growth spurts. The girls might gain anywhere from 15 to 55 pounds and grow 2 to 8 inches. The boys, however, may gain 15 to 65 pounds and grow 4.5 to 12 inches. I don't expect you guys to know those numbers, but just know that the girls um, generally go through the growth spurts before the boys, and their growth spurts are smaller than what the boys are going to experience. So, sexuality is a big issue with the adolescents. Um, physically, they are appearing mature. They have, grown sexual characteristics, whether they've grown breasts or facial hair or whatever, but they're not mentally mature. Um, they some teens really get um, they really like the negative um, attention they get from when they leave 8th grade and are home for the summer. When they come back to school, they've grown boobs, um, and it's all new to them. And these boys are, oh, she's got boobs, and now we're going to talk to her. So they really need more information to develop this healthy self-image and a high self-esteem. Because once they get into high school, they are now, generally they become more interested in sexual issues. So if you consider 50% of all high school students in the U.S. have had sex, um, and only 57% of that has used condoms during their, in their last whatever time. Um, it's really scary. I knew that kids, they partied, they drank, they went out, hung out with their friends, didn't, naughty things. Um, but I was really talking with my daughter one day, and in Westby, this tiny little school, maybe because there's nothing else to do around here, um, but all of her friends that have boyfriends or whatever literally have had sex with them and not use condoms. She literally hears other students talking in classes. She heard one talking about she got diagnosed with HPV, and she was joking around about how that shit ain't curable. So they really don't have this mental understanding of everything that goes along with it. That girl that was joking around, she doesn't understand that, yes, she's still going to have it when she's 50. Um, so, for nursing, we really need to teach them factual information. Um, we we don't want them to get all their information from their friends because a lot of times that isn't even true. Um, I've heard stories about if you have intercourse and go in the shower and use Coke as a douche, you won't get pregnant. Now, and that came from teenagers that were um, talking about how they prevent getting pregnant. So really, they need to hear it from a healthcare person all of the facts. Remind them that they may not think that they can get pregnant the first time. Yeah, wrong. You can. Um, and then we need to really discuss appropriate and inappropriate touch with them. They are going to be um, starting to date And we really need to teach them that when they say no, that means no. Not, okay, they took me out, we went to prom, I have to do whatever with him. Um, we need to really teach them the difference between appropriate and inappropriate. Um, like I said, they're going to get misinformation from their peers. Um, and the sexual minority groups may be stigmatized, but these groups are growing in numbers and really becoming more accepted. I know Westby, when I was in high school down here 100 years ago, um, we had one kid that he was not openly gay. He was still in the closet, but he was he was my best friend. But he was literally run off the road. One of the guys held him down while his girlfriend beat him up. Um, yeah, just terrible, terrible things. And now we have a kiddo who, well, he's a senior now, who is, he wears makeup, and all the girls ask him to help with their makeup because he does the makeup better than they do. And he's just a wonderful kid. So just make sure that we're not stigmatizing a group and we're not um, calling anyone out as their nurse. Erickson's, their stage is identity versus role confusion. They really become more independent. They really develop a sense of self. But if they don't develop a sense of self, they are not sure which role they should be in or what they should be doing. Piaget, formal operational thought. Basically, they're just able to reason maturely. Post-conventional for Kohlberg. Um, they really got their own ethical standards. Um, they understand that their what their social responsibility is. Yeah. So their activities that they are going to be involved in are driving. They might be riding um, city buses. They can bike independently because remember this is 13 on up. Um, they are able to do sports and extracurricular activities, and they can hang out with their friends. So they're doing a lot more. They're maturing. They may have a job, which leads to money, so that they can go shopping on their own. So that it's really kind of a little adult living in mom and dad's house while they get to do different stuff. Temperament and personality in the adolescent. Um, it's really hard, but we need to teach parents to support teens' uniqueness. And I don't know if I should consider uniqueness as they color their hair purple, or their attitudes. Um, but we just need to support the teen um, in everything they do. But because they may become more difficult trying to assert that they're independent, kind of like a toddler, I always say that God gave us the teenage stage so that we could um, really, not separate ourselves, but um, it would that when they left the house for college or for whatever they were doing, it wouldn't be as hard because we would be ready for a break. I only say that because up until they start their teenage years, and then once they are, I don't know, 24, I swear things change a little bit. Communication is pretty mature. They might be studying another language. They take Spanish in high school or decide to take another language. Um, they're going to be very close with their peers. That's going to be their lifeline. Yeah. So at play, these kiddos, um, I guess I really wouldn't call it play. But as I mentioned 100 times, their peers are their most important. They're not they don't rely on their parents as much, and the social interactions are what their whole life is about. And that is the end of the slide. I don't know how I did it, but I made it through. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. Um, this was just kind of a review, but make sure you go over it. I will. I put down a graph that has like the milestones, the um, psychosocial development, um, the yeah, I don't remember what else. Oh, the play for each age group, and I hope that helps. I will be working on some NCLEX questions, but I don't think I'll get those out till probably Wednesday. Um, so if there's anything else you guys need, please let me know, and I will get it for you. Have a good one, guys.